welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. What an amazing presentation there. I love that. I listened to the whole thing. I was like, I felt like I was back at Tony Robbins. I was getting pumped. I was standing up. I don't know if everybody else is doing that too, but that was pretty awesome. So cool stuff. Well, let's get going. So a few things wanted to touch on today. We got a ton of stuff we can talk about. Probably won't get to everything. That's okay. It's always good to have more information. So kind of some of the main things I want to touch on is the cash on cash return and how your mindset, perspective, and certainty play a role. I'm also going to touch on maximizing your agent experience. And then the agent coverage report, that's going to tie into that. That's something new that we have as part of the request process, trying to streamline things and always innovate, get things, make a better experience for everybody involved. And then, like I was talking about before, we'll talk about Ask an Agent Anything. So a little bit of quick background on myself. I'm the Strategic Relationships Manager. I manage the agent, the vendor, and our affiliate networks. I've been doing that with semi-retired since about February. And then before that, back in 2020 is when I got my real estate license and started working with buyers and sellers and investors in the Austin, Texas market. And don't currently work with active investors or buyers and sellers anymore because I'm heavily involved with semi-retired MD, but I get to interact with literally hundreds of agents on a regular basis, which is awesome. And also you guys, all of our investors. So I have great, get to see both sides of the coin, and been doing a lot of things to try to improve the experience for not only our investors, but also the agents that we work with as well. So let's jump forward here. So the first thing I want to talk about is cash on cash return, how your mindset, perspective, and certainty play a role. I love this quote by Warren Buffett. He's probably the best investor in the world of all time. He said the most important quality for an investor is temperament, not intellect. And temperament, you could really take that and switch out mindset for, because really that's what he's talking about, is mindset. And with investing and really anything in life, I think 80% of your results really do come from your mindset, and 20% is going to be the skill, the resources, the environment, and that sort of thing. Kenji and Leti talked about, your state, and it's so important, the state you're in, because, we easily get overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed myself sometimes. And really overwhelm is just a state of unresourcefulness. It's, thinking that, it's not thinking of the possibilities or the ways that you're going to overcome the challenge. You're stuck in a state of, kind of in the fetal position, and that doesn't feel good. And you can't really accomplish, very many goals that way either. So I thought that was, really awesome that it touched on state for us, because that's so crucial. So let's jump into this. So the cash on cash return, that's something that, if I think about, what's probably the most heavily debated topic amongst investors and agents, because we're talking about the agent network here and how to best utilize them, is probably cash on cash return. And I think it would be good to start off with a definition of what the cash on cash return is, and then we can go from there. So cash on cash return is a calculation that calculates the percent of cash income, which is your cash flow, earned on the cash invested in a property on an annual basis. So simply put, it's a 1-year snapshot of the return that you will earn on your money that you've invested in a property. And the kind of keyword is 1 year. And this is where I see a lot of friction, I would say, between investors and agents, is that 1-year snapshot. Because many times when you acquire a property, whether it's a long-term rental, short-term rental, mid-term rental, there's things that you're going to have to do to it to get it to operating at its full potential. You might have tenants in place. that are paying under market rents. You might have a renovation that you need to do. Kenji talked about, forcing appreciation, and that's one of the best ways to do it is by doing a renovation. Also, you might have, you might need to market the property more. I mean, there's lots of things that might need to happen that are going to take time, and it doesn't matter, what type of rental it is. A lot of the times it can be the case that the numbers aren't going to look like you want them in that first year. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad investment. How you want to leverage your agent is there's features and benefits that are going to make your property more desirable as a rental in the market that you're in. And you can leverage them to figure out what those are. So for example, if you're purchasing a home in Montana, maybe hot tubs are really something that increases the value if you're trying to do a short-term rental. Probably swimming pool is not, because it'd probably be more of an ice skating rink, which might be a benefit too. I don't know, but that would be something where the agent is going to be able to give you some ideas on, say, hey, these are the things that really add the most value. This is the type of style of house. This is the type of kitchens, the floor plan, other features and benefits, and that sort of thing. And then what you want to do is you want to, leverage that information, and then also your other team members. So maybe you're a contractor or property manager, and come up with a plan of what you're going to do to the property and where the numbers are going to be at year 2 and 3. Because most likely your numbers in year 2 and 3 are going to be much better than what they're going to be in year 1. And so how do you pull that all together, right? Because the cash on cash return is really you're just looking at 1 year. Well, the best thing to do is going to be to average that out. And so the really simplest way to do it is you run the numbers for year 1. You have your plan in place. You're going to do X, Y, and Z to the property. That's going to, push you up to a certain amount of income, cash flow, and then you can factor those numbers and do the calculations for year 2, and then do the same thing for year 3. And then you can just take the average and see what does that average equate to. And if that meets your standards, then that could be a really good investment. And so this is where, utilizing the agent to get that information, having them help you, plus your other team members, help you build that plan and that vision, because it isn't a good investment if you purchase it's below expectation that first year, and you don't have a plan for year 2 and 3, and you're just hoping that things will get better, that you'll be able to charge more rent, that you'll probably do a renovation. That's not recommended. You want to have a solid plan. And how does this fit into Fast Fire? Well, Fast Fire is really the big drivers of that are forced appreciation and the tax savings that you're going to get from owning real estate rental properties. Really way more significant than cash on cash. So cash on cash is definitely important. You want to own an asset, not a liability. You want something that is putting money in your pocket. But forced appreciation and tax savings, that's where you're really going to grow your wealth. And that's where you're going to really take those giant leaps forward and start to get, towards financial freedom. So what is the best return? And I mentioned before, this is something that, I don't think there is a best return. I think the best return is the number that, you feel comfortable with, that meets your standards. Kenji and Lacey talked about needing to increase your standards, especially as we go into, these changes in the market. And I think that's, right on point for sure. And you want to keep your standards high, and you also want to, make sure that you're communicating that with your agent as well, so that you guys can work together. I think, you know, if I put my agent hat on, the clients that I liked working with the most, that had the, you know, best success with, were the ones that were really specific on what they wanted. They were, you know, maybe slightly unrealistic. You know, realistic is you know, it's left up to interpretation. But what they wanted did exist, but it wasn't easy to find, put it that way. And so the great thing about that was that when we found the right property, we knew right away. There was no question, because they were so specific on what they wanted, the area, the type of property, beds and baths, you know, all those things, which was great. So let's talk about doing your research, and having some examples to build certainty. And this is something that Kinji and Leti mentioned. And so I wanted to pull up something for you guys. All right, cool. So this is a property in Dallas, and this is you know, this is something that would help out an agent a lot that you're working with, giving them some ideas on and some examples of what you're looking for. Now, this property, this is actually live right now. It's pending in Dallas, Texas. It's a beautiful home. It's obviously a flip property. I looked at the when it was purchased back in the beginning of this year, and you know, everything's been renovated. So this, and the way that you would use this is you would say, you know, hey, Agent John Doe, you know, this is the area, the general area I'm looking for. This is exactly how I want my property to look. Let's make these a little bigger. There we go. This is exactly how I want my property to look, but I don't want to buy the finished product. I want to buy the property that has these opportunities. And, you know, this is also stuff that the agent can point out to you and say, you know, hey, you know, this is the style of kitchen that's really popular. So then you can work with your contractor and your team, so that when you do, you know, come across a property that you guys are going to do a possible renovation, they can pull you some solid numbers on it. But, you know, if you send your agent a number of these properties and say, hey, I'm looking for, this is the style I want, you know, this is the area I want, this is the general beds and bathrooms, or whatever the specifics are, then they can start looking. It helps them out so much, and it really, it just is it's going to move you forward a lot faster. So I hope that makes sense on that one. And then, you know, touched on it a little bit before, setting high standards. I think that's really important. You know, it's easy to, when things get more challenging, it's easy to lower your standards. Say, you know, the market's tough right now. Interest rates are high. I think I should lower my standards and lower my cash on cash expectations. And that's really what you don't want to do. You want to keep those standards up, and you just want to become more resourceful.
Jesse, can I interrupt and ask you a few cash on cash calculator questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so let's see. Linda wants to know, do you take out the renovation and closing costs for your 2 and 3 on your cash on cash calculator for your years 2 and 3?
You would, yep, because you're not going to have those expenses year 2 and 3, so you take those out, and then you could just take all 3 years. So let's say you had, you know, 5% the first year, 20% the second year, and 30% the third year. Add those all together and divide by 3, and that would be your average. That'd be one way to do it.
And that's how you figure out what numbers to put for year 2 and 3?
Yeah, so you would just run your numbers for years 2 and 3, but you would leave out the expenses that you aren't going to incur in those years. So you're not doing a renovation, and let's say, you know, you bought a property in July, and you're going to use that as a short-term rental, but there's long-term rental tenants in there right now, and you just can't get them out until, you know, maybe September, and then you're going to do a renovation, and you're not going to be able to actually rent the property out until January. Well, you're not going to have any rental income, you know, for the remainder of the year. So year 1 is going to look pretty bad. But year two, you're not going to have the renovation costs. You'll have your nightly rate's going to be a lot higher, because you'll have, done the renovation. And so year two, you're going to have pretty good numbers. And then year three should be even better because you'll be charging more. And, your cost of, your loan shouldn't have increased. Really, that shouldn't have changed that much. And then you just average those out, then divide by 3.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. All right, well, let's hop forward here. So let's talk about maximizing the agent experience. So want to go through understanding the process. We made a few changes to the process, trying to always innovate and improve things for everybody involved. What we found was that, just to give you guys a little context, just this year alone, we've probably added 100 new agents, somewhere around 100, and probably at least 2/3 of those are new markets, so totally new cities. And what we were finding is that, and a lot of those were short-term specific agents. And so what we were finding is that we would, bring a new agent in for a new market. We get them connected with the investor, and then, we might not get another request for that specific market because it is so, so unique. And we're trying to build relationships with these agents, just like you guys are. And we want to be able to send them more investors so that, we can, grow our relationship with them and, become tighter. And it's hard. We found that just wasn't the case if we only sent them one investor to work with, ever, or once every 6 months. It just wasn't a great experience. So what we've decided to do is to focus on the markets that we have agents in. The exciting news is that we have over 2,600 different cities listed in our agent coverage report now. And it is, slowly growing as well. We do get referrals and add, new people to that. But the great thing is, we've got a great resource of agents. They're spread across 46 states. And really, it's more than 2,600 different cities because we can't list every single city. But, if we did, it would probably be more like double or triple that. But just to give you guys a sense of the coverage we have amazing coverage right now. So the way that the introduction process works now, you use the same form links as you used before for either short-term or long-term rental agent. And then you'll see a link to our agent coverage report. And we're updating that, as often as we need to when we bring a new agent in, or if an agent ends up leaving our market. And the report looks like, show you guys, looks just like this. It's a Google Doc that you'll be able to access. It's really easy to sort by column. So you can sort it by state, you can sort it by city, you can sort it by type of agent. So we've got the green column there is going to be all STR agents. And what each column is going to tell you is how many agents we have for that type of agent in that city and state, which is pretty cool. So you'll be able to, so what you want to do is, first thing you want to do is, have the city in mind. So you're looking for Austin, Texas, for example. You go here and you could sort by Texas first if you wanted, or you could just go Control F and you could just enter in Austin, Texas, and that would pull up that line. And it would tell you how many agents we have for short-term rentals, how many ZTF agents, long-term rental agents we have for single family, small multifamily, commercial 5+ doors, and also commercial other, so like medical office building. And then as long as there's at least one agent for the city and the property types that you're looking for, you just go through and fill out the request form just as you normally would. So no difference on that. Now, if the city you're looking for isn't listed, that doesn't mean necessarily that we don't have an agent that can cover it. What you'll want to do is, if you can find a city that's on the report that's within at least 15 miles of the city that you're looking for, then you can assume 99% of the time that the agent or agents that are listed will cover that city as well. So when you fill out your request, still, request the closest city that's on the report. Don't put the city that you're specifically looking for, but when we make the connection, you'll be able to actually talk with the agent and let them know, hey, I requested Austin, but I'm really looking for Lago Vista, which is 10 miles away. Any questions on that?
I have one from Annie. It says, we bought several properties with the same agent, but she's never brought us any deals. Why is that? She also doesn't believe it's realistic to find 10% cash on cash properties.
Okay, well, let's attack the deal one first. So when you work with an agent, it's a partnership. You guys are working together.
Is part of it just the expectation too? Like I would be curious if she's asked for deals, if they've asked, the agent for deals too.
Yeah, it's a lot of, I would back up and I would say that the major benefit of working with an agent is the protection that they're giving you. If you look at the whole process of purchasing a property, they're the only person that has a fiduciary duty for you. Nobody else does. The lender, the CPA, or whoever else you're using doesn't have that. So they really have that unique position. Some agents are going to have more access to off-market deals. Some agents are going to maybe better understand what you're looking for, so they can send you better properties. Some agents are really just spread so thin they don't have a lot of extra time to search properties, so maybe they set you up on an automatic feed. But the way that I would look at it is, a lot of the work that the agent's going to do for you is really after the property is identified. That's kind of the fun part, finding the property. So whether you find the property as the investor or the agent, it really doesn't matter, because once whoever finds it, then at that point, the agent's going to have to do some research for you. They're going to have to, call the listing agent. They got to figure out the status of the property. They're going to have to figure out how many offers are in, all that stuff that's, all that legwork that as an investor or a retail buyer, primary home buyer, you just don't see. It just looks like they just send you a picture and then, you send something to sign. I can tell you those contracts, that just to get a contract together, if you're fast and you're good, it's about 90 minutes. That's if there's nothing crazy you have to get. So it does take them a lot of work, and they have to, proofread to make sure that they're not, putting you in harm's way. So I would just say, communicate more with the agent, be more specific on what you want, make sure they understand that. And then just know that if an agent isn't sending you properties, send them properties, because that motivates them. They're going to say, wow, this person's really interested, and they're going to get a better sense of what you're looking for. Just like the example that I showed you guys, that helps out so much. Thinking about the clients that I've worked with over the years, the ones that were really specific, they were challenging to work with, but they were also the easiest to work with at the same time, because when we found the property, we knew exactly that was the right property.
I would also add that, as someone who used to work in recruitment, that it's amazing to me the serendipity nature of properties. So, for example, when I would have someone come in and say, hey, have you seen any positions that might be a good fit for my background? Like, the number of times that a position had just come across that would be a good fit. So just that continually reaching out is a great way to just stay on their radar. But there's something weird in the universe that goes on, that the universe is like, here, I just sent them this deal. So I've heard so many people say, yeah, I called my agent and they just got this new deal, this morning or yesterday. So let that work in your karmic favor.
Yeah. Be the squeaky wheel.
So, so do you want to finish Annie's other question? And then we have one from Helen too.
Yeah, well, what was the second part of her question?
If the agent thinks, well, this leads to a couple questions. So
Oh, is the
she
cash
says,
on
what
cash?
if the cash isn't 10%? And part of what I'd like you to address also is, so I would say probably, maybe a quarter of our agents, they've come into our network because students have loved their agent that they found on their own and referred them to us. So I'm just curious if you can tell people, like, if I had an agent that was amazing, why would I want them to be part of the network?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Because part of that
there's,
is having the agents who believe in that 10% cash on cash property.
yeah. And I think a lot of this goes back to too, a bit earlier when I was talking about of being able to have that vision of 2 and 3 years out, because the reality is a lot of the times, yes, year one, it might not hit 10% or 20% or 30% or 40, whatever your number is, it might not get there year one. But if you have a plan in place, a solid plan of how you're going to do it, year 2 and 3, and the average works out to your standard, then that's okay. And that's, a lot of investors, that's how they buy properties. They're looking long-term. The cash on cash is definitely important. And that's the main focus, that's one of the main focuses of what we teach in the courses. But it's not just that first year. You got to look at year 2 and year 3. What's your plan to get there? And then if an agent says, yeah, 10% cash on cash, long-term rental, impossible in the market. Well, I don't believe that it's impossible. I don't think anything's impossible, but probably what's happening is that they're also looking just at year one, and that they need help, and probably you guys need to work together and say, hey, let's project this thing out 3 years. What's year 2 and 3 going to be? What are things that I can do to my property? What would make my property unique? You look at hundreds of properties, every week probably. What's the average, and what's a higher standard? If most of the homes are 3-bedroom, 2 baths, for the short-term rentals, then why don't we look for something that either has 4 bedrooms and 4 baths, or something that has the space or the opportunity to do that? Maybe it's got an attic that I can convert, or whatever that happens to be. But that's where having that conversation, that communication with your agent, and helping them, and them helping you as well, having a longer term plan. I think that's where the disconnect comes, because if you just say, hey, I want 10% cash on cash year one, and there's so many factors that go into that. Like, okay, we were talking about a turnkey property. Are we talking about something that you're going to force appreciation on? Are you buying something with, tenants they're under market rents? I mean, there's a huge list of things that are going to have to happen before you can get to those numbers, before you can start to really crank that cash on cash up, increase the, force that appreciation and things like that. And that's where having that conversation with your agent, and you guys actually formulating a plan, and looking for properties with opportunity is where you can kind of align on those regards.
Linda put in, excuse me, a question about the report. She says, am I missing something? I can only see a number in the column for my city. Is there any way on this report to see the name of that person?
Yeah, so you're not going to see names of agents on this report. This report is just going to be a list of the number of agents that we have in each market. And so what you want to do is you want to use the report and make sure there's at least one agent in the market that you're looking at, and the types of properties that you're looking at. So if I'm making a ZTF request for Austin, Texas, and I'm saying, hey, I want to be able to purchase a single family residential, a small multi, and also a commercial, then when I look across the line for Austin, Texas, I want to make sure there's at least a 1 in each one of those columns. Because if there isn't, I either need to look for a different city, or I need to change the property types I'm requesting, because what that's telling me is that there isn't an agent that can cover all of those different property types in that market. So once you find that, you verify. So let's say you're looking for a small multifamily agent in Austin, Texas. yeah, we do have those, I know for sure. You know, you look, you verify that there's at least one, then you just fill out the request as the same. It's going to go in our system. It takes us 2 to 5 business days. There's some administrative steps that we have to do on the back end to make those connections. And then our goal is to get you connected with 2 agents in each market, but we don't always have 2 agents. Sometimes we only have 1. But once we get those administrative steps done on the back end, then we send out the introduction emails. So one thing that's really important is that, you know, it's very rare that you're going to get both. Let's say there's 2 agents available. It's very rare that you're going to get both introduction emails at the same time. Most of the time you'll get, you know, maybe you make your request on Monday and you get one introduction email on Wednesday and another one on Thursday. And it doesn't mean that the agent is slow or bad at their job or there's any issue like that. You know, there's some steps in place that are out of the agent's control. And, you know, that's why we say 2 to 5 business days to give us enough time to get those steps completed. So the one thing that I would, you know, ask is that, you know, give each agent a chance. And, you know, if you want to just use one agent over the other, that's totally fine. But definitely, you know, wait till you get that second introduction so that both agents are getting a chance. Because what we communicate to the agents is that, yes, you know, we are introducing, you know, more than one agent to this investor, but they will be, you know, speaking with all agents. And many investors do work with more than one agent because they want to increase their deal flow. So they want to be able to get more properties. And that's totally fine too. And some investors only work with one agent in each market because they find someone they know, like, and trust, and they'd rather just work with them, which is totally fine as well. I've worked with, you know, all types of investors myself, and really it's just a matter of, you know, communicating that, you know, to the agents and making sure, like I said, give them all a shot. You know, don't talk to the first agent and decide, hey, this is the agent for me. And then when you get connected with the next one the next day, say, hey, I already got connected with a great agent because they're expecting to have an opportunity. And it's not their fault that they weren't able to get introduced to you at the same time. Like I said, it's a lot of it's out of their control.
And to that same point, I want to encourage everyone, like, we send out invitations. Not everybody in this call is an empire builder, and that's okay. I think a lot of our alumni don't realize that they have indefinite access to the agent network. And but could you address the difference? Like Helen asked that she enrolled in Accelerating Wealth, but she's looking at now going into long-term, and so she'd like to request an agent that specializes in long-term rentals. So why we have that in place so that Accelerating Wealth only has access to the short-term rental agents, and why Zero to Freedom has access to both?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we have things sectioned off as short-term rental agents and ZTF agents. So all the ZTF agents are in the turquoise there on the report. And the reason is because, well, from the agent side, there's a lot of specifics that have to do with short-term rentals that there's a lot of agents that don't want to deal with it because they have to know the different rules and regulations. And then looking at the from our investor standpoint, there's a lot of training that's involved with purchasing a long-term rental. And so our course, Zero to Freedom, gets you up to speed on all that stuff. And the course is actually a little bit longer than the short-term rental course. It goes a little bit more in depth on how to best leverage those agents, how to build a team. You know, you're gonna, you know, need probably a little bit more of an extensive team when you're looking at long-term rentals, especially as you start to build out your portfolio more. So what we've decided to do to really set up the agents and the investors for the most success is to limit the long-term rental or the ZTF agents to investors that have taken the ZTF course. That way they're the best prepared, and also the agents have the best experience. many of the agents that we partner with are some of the top agents in their markets. They're extremely busy. A lot of them do have teams. So, they operate on a pretty large scale. And so we want to make sure that the investors that we're handing off to them are ready to go. They're well prepared and they can really maximize the relationship. And unfortunately, we've had to learn the hard way. As a lot of things in life, the best lessons are learned the hard way.
We're the adversary.
Yeah, we've unfortunately lost a number of amazing agents because we did introduce investors to them that were not prepared. And when you're an agent that's extremely busy and your time is really limited, and you're being given investors that aren't meeting the standards that you were told they would meet, it can be really frustrating. And so unfortunately we have lost some really great investor agents because of that. So in order to keep a great experience for the agents and the investors and preserve those relationships and be able to offer their services to as many investors as possible, that's why we've sectioned that off. So if you take in Accelerated Wealth, you have access to all the short-term rental agents. If you've taken Zero to Freedom, you have access to all of the ZTF agents as well as the SDR agents.
And I will say that specifically with the long-term rentals, there are a lot of agents who kind of have a rule of thumb that they won't even work with new investors. So one of the things that I love hearing are when these agents come to us and they just, the students will be like, oh, yeah, they couldn't believe how ready I was or how prepared I was. So we've also gained a lot of agents that we probably just at first glance, we would think not would select us to be part of our network. But because of the effort that people put into being ready, then we've benefited from that as well.
Yeah, it's true. It's the greatest thing I hear is how amazing our investors are to work with.
I hear it a lot.
They
Yeah.
are.
Mhm.
Yeah, they know how to run the numbers. They've got their financing in place. They've got their property manager lined up to go out there and tour properties, on inspection day. I mean, it's really amazing. And kind of jump into the next section here, which is how to maximize your agent experience. We've kind of already started it, but you really want to try to impress the agent because the agent is a person just like you, and they would think about it. If you're a doctor and you have a choice of patients to work with, what type of patients would you want to work with? People that are taking their medicine and following the procedures, or people that aren't, and they just show up expecting everything to happen and nothing ever heals and they never feel better. So it's the same thing with the agents, and the more prepared you guys are, the more prepared we can get you, the better the experience is, the more they want to work with you. And it's just, it just takes off from there. So
Patricia, if you, I think Patricia's our tech support person today. Can you put the pretty links so that people can have access to the links for the short-term rental and for the long-term rental agents, please? Can you put the pretty links in there? Okay. Let's see, that was Christina's question. Linda had one more question about the cash on cash.
Yep.
And so before we move on to the next section, it says, if you have a negative COC in year one due to renovations, how do you account for the fact that your 3-year average will likely be low due to the initial negative COC?
Yeah, I mean, you would just average it out. So, I mean, one way to do it would be to average it out. I mean, you could also look at it and you could, compare each year kind of individually too. I mean, you don't have to do the average. It's really up to you how you want to do it. Maybe the first year you're flat or you're -1, and the next year you're, maybe this is a long-term rental, for example, and the next year you're 8%. The next year you're 15%. Well, for some investors that would be amazing, in others it would not. And so you just got to figure out, how certain are you that you will hit those numbers in year 2 and 3, because that's really important. You want to make sure that your plan is solid, and you can use the community to bounce off your plan. Say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about buying. Here's what I'm looking at for year 2 and 3. Upsides, downsides, help me out, community, and the community can help you out with that as well. But at the end of the day, it's your investment, and you've got to feel good about that. And there's no 100% right answer for that that's going to fit everybody. But the easiest way to do it is one easy way to do it is just to take the average, but you can also look at them all individually as well. I think the biggest thing is to be able to the biggest thing is to have a solid plan in place, and not be hoping and wishing that things are going to get better, thinking hey, I'll buy the property now, interest rates will probably go down, I'll probably be able to charge more, and I think the things I'm doing to the property will make it more attractive. Like, that's not what you want. You want to have like a solid plan and know that based on these properties, this is what's popular, based on these rentals that I did some research on, these rentals are getting way more, they're charging way more for rent than these other ones. And so I'm pretty certain that if I do these things to the property, that I should be right in that category. So just make sure you have a good plan, and if you feel good about it, bounce it off some people for some feedback, and then move forward with it.
Sai asks, what happens if the agent is a dual agent? We were looking at a property in one of the markets served by an SRMD agent, and he disclosed at the very beginning that he also was the listing agent. However, when we tried to negotiate, we encountered some resistance and felt that if we'd gone with someone else, we'd been able to negotiate better. What would you recommend in this scenario? Leite and Kenji ran into that, and they decided that it was worth it to bring their own agent in and pay them a percentage, or just so that they could have that like person with their best interest in mind. But what would you recommend, Jesse?
It's really I think the biggest benefit of having an agent is having someone in your corner and looking out for you. So when you do run into a dual agent situation, you lose that. It'd be the same if you were buying, say you're going to go buy a property from a for sale by owner, a homeowner or a property owner, right? And they said, hey, you can buy the property from me, just between us, or you can go get your own agent. You can pay their commission yourself. There's going to be upsides and downsides to both of them. Typically, you end up saving money, I would say, by having your own agent, because yes, they negotiate on your behalf. And then even if they aren't able to negotiate anything, which would be pretty rare, they usually save you money from things that could happen down the road. They're gonna see stuff. They're writing contracts. They're looking at properties all day, every day, and so they're gonna know certain things that red flags that'll pop up. For one example, maybe the market you're looking in, sewer scopes are something that's important, and if you don't know that and you buy the property and then you find out a month later that your sewer pipe going from your house to the road is leaking, that's like $15,000 to replace, and that's for about a 20-foot section. If it's longer, it's very expensive. So it's just one example. In other places it's septic tanks, or every market's different, and that's where the agent is going to come in and help protect you. So if you feel like the risk reward is there and you want to use the same agent, people do that all the time, and there's nothing wrong with it, but you just want to make sure that you feel confident in that the risk is worth the reward, and the reward is probably going to be possibly saving on some commissions, but if you're buying a $1 million house, for example, and you're going to pay 3%, that's what, $30,000. $30,000, if you had to spend 15 grand on a new sewer or side sewer, that's half of it right there, plus the possible internal damage that can cause to your house if your toilets aren't flushing and people keep flushing them. So you just got to weigh the pros and cons, the upsides and downsides, and there's no right answer. But know that if you and every state's different too. For example, in Texas, that you can't do that. You can't have a dual agent, but in California and Washington, you can. So every state's different as well. So certain things are okay in some places and not in others. But overall, I would just look at what your comfort level is. If it's an area that you live in, that you bought in multiple houses in or properties in, that you feel really confident, maybe you have a great inspector, that you are, really put a lot of faith in, then maybe it is a good decision for you. But maybe it's not also. So no easy answer, but you just got to kind of go with your gut on that one.
That's all the questions I have. Let's keep going.
All right, let's keep cruising.
Thanks, sir.
No problem. Well, let's talk about how to get to the top of the agent's list, because I think that we touched on some of the things already. Sending them properties, that's a great way. I think also having a team in place, especially a property manager. Whether you're going to use that property manager or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, you could self-manage, but you could still have a property manager contact, so that that person can help you run comps. Obviously, you want to run your own as well, but you have a property manager that can help run rental comps, whether it's long-term or short-term. That's a huge advantage. And a lot of agents that are working with buyers and sellers and investors, they don't, a lot of them don't have access to rental comps. And then the ones that do, that's not their specialty. That's a whole another side of the business. And vice versa too. A property manager, a lot of times, I mean, they're heavily involved with rentals, right? That's all they do, and they might buy and sell some property, but that's not really their wheelhouse. And as similar as the two things seem, they are very different. The way properties are marketed, the way that they pull comps is kind of similar, but the information that they have access to is going to be different. And just think about it, like if you were, if you're someone that works with renters all day, that's totally different than someone that works with buyers and sellers. It's, a different client base, different customers. So going back to, getting to the top of your agent's list, if you have a property manager, if you have a contractor, if you have these key team members already in place, and you can say, hey, agent, John Doe, I've already got my property manager and my contractor in place. I'm super excited. When we get a property identified, I'm going to get them out there and, do the walkthrough on the inspection. And they're going to just
have a slide for this newfound information, sir.
Oh yes. Let's see here.
Got to keep our visual learners engaged,
Yeah, visual learners. Let's see. I'm gonna be more on this one. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. I got two screens going here, so I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry. So tips for working with agents, getting to the front of the list. That's what we're talking about. So having your team in place, super helpful. Another big thing is decide on the best way to communicate. I would do this right off the get-go. This is something that, when I look at all the friction that happens between agents and investors, it almost always comes down to a lack of communication. And sometimes it's as simple as an agent is communicating via email and an investor is communicating via text, and they aren't syncing up. I mean, it can be that simple. And from the outside, it's like, hey guys, why don't we just align and communicate the same way? But that was never talked about. And so this was something that, in your very first communication with the agent, I would set the groundwork and say, hey, what's the best way for us to communicate? Agents are going to have information that they want to be sharing with you. And so, it might be a combination of email and text. A lot of times text is a great way to notify an agent of a property or vice versa. And then email can be followed up with, with more specifics about the property or all the documents. You can utilize, Google and doing a shared drive to share documents. That's something that have used with clients. It's super beneficial. You can start a new file for every property that you guys are looking at. But really having that conversation and saying, hey, what are the best ways to communicate? What are the best days and times? Let's get everybody aligned so that you guys are operating at a high, highly efficient level. Because the worst thing is if the agent is sending you tons of emails and you're someone that doesn't check your emails, then that's just not going to work. And if you're sending them texts and they're looking at these texts and trying to figure out, maybe you just send them a picture of a property, they're like, I don't even know, I can't even find this. Or you just send them a house number or something, and that's just not how they operate. It's going to be, you guys aren't going to align very well. It's going to be not a good experience. So that would be something I would say right off the get-go. Figure out how you guys are going to communicate, set those expectations ahead of time. That way, you're not expecting, you're sending them a text at, 7 p.m. on a Friday, expecting them to get back to you right away. And they're thinking, hey, I'm done at 6. I'm having dinner with my family. So we already talked about reaching out often, sending your agent possible properties. I think that's, that's just, something that's awesome. Keep them, stay top of mind with them, make sure that they know that you are looking, you're actively looking, you really want to move forward and send them properties that you're looking at. I would also talk about the cash on cash calculator with them. So depending on what type of property you're looking at, all of the agents have our 3 different cash on cash calculators. But they may not all use them all the time because every investor, has a slightly different, slightly different investment philosophy. So, we speak in cash on cash. Other investors speak on cap rate or speak on appreciation, and none of them are wrong. But we all speak the same language, and that works. So you want to make sure that your agent is speaking the same language. So if you guys are talking about the cash on cash calculator, and if you can ask them to use that as a screening tool, that can be super beneficial as well. It's something that I've been working on communicating with them. But just also remember that this is your investment, it's your property. It's at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to run the numbers, and don't rely on the agent to run all the numbers for you.
We have a question that came in.
Yep.
We inquired about a property on a Redfin a couple weeks ago, and now we feel obligated to work with the agent that responded. She's very responsive and frequently sends us follow-up texts, but I don't think she specializes in short-term rentals. I don't know how to handle this situation. I don't feel confident buying something through her because she doesn't specialize in short-term rentals, but I know she's put quite a bit of work into us when we ask her questions. Any advice?
Well, I would ask the question of, so I don't know if the agent is part of our agent network, if they are experienced in short-term rentals. So, this might be an agent that you maybe have found on your own. So I think I would ask the question to yourself of what does it take to be, what would make you confident in this agent's ability to find properties that you could use as a short-term rental? Is it knowing the laws and regulations? Is it being able to do the short-term rental cash on cash calculator? It sounds like from what you're saying that this agent is an amazing agent. They're great to work with. They're sending you properties, which is, as we've heard other investors say, that is one thing that is a point of contention sometimes between agents and investors, not getting enough properties. So I think I would just look at, what are your expectations? What are maybe the skills that you feel like this agent is missing, and see if you can address those, because, a lot of agents do want to, there are a lot of agents that are open to, they want to learn new things. And maybe they don't know everything there is to know about short-term rentals, and that doesn't have to be a negative, whereas you can help fill them in a little bit. You can also refer them back to our website. So our blog, we have a whole section just on short-term rentals that they can easily read through, really quickly, and get, some good information. And if they combine that with their experience, and most agents are experienced in single family residential properties, and most short-term rentals are single family residential properties. So it's the same type of property 99% of the time, or 9 out of 10 times. It's just, you're just using the property differently. So it's knowing the rules and regulations. Which is probably the biggest part of it. And then, just filling in some of the gaps as far as, maybe they, some agents are more versed in, what the rates are and those sort of things. Just like running the numbers on the cash on cash. I mean, that should at the end fall on the investor. But some agents do also use that, and that can bring a lot of value. So I would just make a list and say, hey, here's the things that if this agent knew how to do, I would feel really confident in them advising me on buying a short-term rental, and then bring that up to them and see if they can leverage the resources that we have, or they can, learn some things on their own. And that gap that you are feeling may be a lot smaller than you think it actually is.
How do you, as the manager of our agent network, how do you want feedback? What's the easiest way to give feedback? Sally is asking, is there a way to send feedback to SRMD about our experience with a recommended agent? If yes, can you please share how? Thank you.
Yeah, feedback is always amazing. Most agents in our network want to grow, they want to get better. And, being an agent myself, I always ask for feedback. But, as a human being race, we definitely, we seem to avoid conflict more often. And so it's really difficult to get honest feedback. So what you're asking about is extremely valuable to us, and then also to the agents as well. So you can email me, Jesse@semiretiredmd.com, and I will respond to you. If you want to have a conversation, just shoot me an email. I'll shoot you my Calendly link, and we can have a conversation, either a phone, Zoom conversation about that. I've done that many times. And, a lot of the times, to the issues that investors are facing with agents is really, some of it can be expectations, and some of it can be also communication, and how to really guide the agent to the destination that you want to be. So we had things that seemed to the investor like, wow, this agent isn't the right fit for me. And then after a conversation between me and the investor, actually found out a way to make it work and really have a great interaction and successful.
What about the opposite, where it's it's us who maybe misstepped? We have an anonymous attendee ask, we found a great agent, but dropped the ball on communication, partly because we were rocked by COVID. What's the best way to salvage the situation?
Yeah, just reach out to them, shoot them a text, shoot them an email, give them a call. And, agents are commonly blown off. So it's not, if you've not communicated with them, don't feel bad about it. It happens to them all the time, and they have pretty thick skin. And if you reach back out to them and just say, hey, I had this stuff going on in my life. I'm sorry I didn't communicate with you. I'm going to do better next time. But I'm really motivated to move forward. They'll, probably 99 out of 100 times, open their arms up and welcome you back in. So It's just a matter of reaching out and just letting them know, just be real with them, tell them what's going on, and more likely than not, they'll want to, connect back with you.
Yeah, I think sometimes we just need to just show, oh yeah, there's some egg on my face, and this isn't, I didn't show up as my favorite self, and and just help them write a different story about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, I've, so as working as an agent myself, I mean, I had people that I would reach out to. I would have, maybe I was talking to them about listing their house, for example, and we were going back and forth conversation, everything's going well. And, speaking every couple of days, and, schedule an appointment, and then, they don't show up, and then they're just MIA for months on end. And then all of a sudden I get a call or an email saying, hey, we're ready to list our house. And, we just pick back up and we end up moving forward. So it happens all the time with agents. So like I said, I just wouldn't feel bad about it. I would just tell them what went on, and then just reach back out and guarantee that I'll just pick back up right where you guys left off. No problem.
Thank you.
All right. So let's see, a couple more things you can do to move to the top of an agent's list. Making a purchase, buying a property. That's a great way. That shows them that you're serious. And that doesn't mean lowering your standards to buy a property. It just means, actually going through the process. So you still want to have all your, everything in line, make sure it's a great investment. Also be proactive on, sending them any documents they need. So especially like pre-approval letters, or insurance documents, or whatever it has to be. Being quick on communication. So once you guys decide on the communication style that you're going to use, being really responsive. That's with an agent, when they're putting a contract together, getting an addendum signed or whatever it is, there's usually multiple people that have to sign. And the longer it takes to get the first person signed, then the longer it takes to get the last person signed. And there can be 5 or 6 people on a document. And so the quicker that you guys, that you can move for your agent, the easier it is for them, and the quicker they can perform for you guys. And I think probably the last thing I would touch on with agents, as far as, getting to the top of the list, would probably be painting a long-term vision for the relationship with them. Agents, most agents that, well, you think about working with not investors, so primary home buyers, an average person is buying a home every 3 to 5 years. So once the transaction is over, they don't see those people again for a long time. Investors are different. Investors, especially you guys, are really focused on building up large portfolios. But even investors sometimes don't buy properties that often. So communicating that to the agent and saying, hey, this is my goal. I want to, 2 years from now, I want to have $100,000 in cash flow, or by the end of 2023. You guys are working on the RPM method that you guys learned about with Kimji and Leti. That's really powerful to communicate it to your agents, because just think, if you're an agent and an investor says, hey, I really want to, I have one property and I'm cash flowing, $500 a month or something, or, $10,000 a year, whatever it happens to be, and I want to be at $100,000. Well, that's not going to happen in 2 or 3 or 4 properties. You're going to have multiple properties. And, that's exciting for an investor, or for an agent, to know that they're going to have someone that they can build a relationship with and work with for an extended period of time. So just make sure, paint that vision to them, paint that vision for them, so they can understand and get on board and get excited about, creating this relationship. They're going to show up differently too, if they know that, you're in this for the long run versus just, it's funny. I mean, we'll do an introduction to an agent, for an investor, and the investor will be also looking at another market, and it comes back to kind of communication, and the agent will reach out and say, well, they just closed on a property in Tennessee last week, so they're kind of like that, there it goes, and I say, whoa, whoa, this investor's goal is, I don't know exactly what the goal is, but I know that most of them are wanting to reach financial freedom. And you're not going to reach financial freedom in 1 property, 2 properties, 3 properties, probably even 10 properties. And if this is their first property, they've got to buy more. So, reach back out. Nothing's ended. This is just the first of many. This is good because now they actually have some experience. So next time they go through the process, they understand it more. And if the investor had just communicated that with the agent from the get-go of, hey, this is the vision, just think what that experience would have been like. So,
it's the difference between telling somebody you made chocolate chip cookies and letting them taste the chocolate chip cookies. The specificity is really important because financial freedom means something different to every person. I want to invest in multiple properties. That can have its own timeline for every single person. So I think when you're building that relationship, to create that expectation of what that looks like for you in that particular market at that particular time is crucial.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, if let's say, for example, your goal is to replace your clinical income and it's $300,000 a year. Well, if you communicate that to the agent, hey, I want to cash flow $300,000 a year. Right now I'm cash flowing 10,000. And I figured that's going to be X amount of properties. And I'd like to focus on, this is one of the main markets I want to focus on. And I'd like to build a relationship with you and, be able to have you as a resource so that, we can grow our businesses together. Wow. Like if you told me that as an agent, I'm like, that's it. I don't want to work with any other investors. You're amazing. So, just think about, do the work on the front end to figure out, what are your goals? What's the plan, long-term vision, and make sure you communicate that to your agents as well. All right, let me hit on a couple more things here, and then I'm going to hand it over to you, Kirsten. So the agent coverage report, like I said, we got over 2,600 cities on there. We got 5 different property types. We got the link to access the report in the actual request forms. We talked about how to quickly use it and why we're using it. One little asterisk I'm going to put by this isn't a live feed of our agent network. So there are going to be some times where, it says there's an agent in this city, where we might not actually have an agent in that city. So it's an imperfect system. And so just please give us a little grace with it. 95% of the time, there should not be an issue. We're updating this as often as we need to, but just like any system, there's a lot of moving parts and it's not going to be 100% accurate 100% of the time. So, we work our best to keep this, up to date and no issues like that, but just wanted to let you guys know. So, and then I think the last thing I want to touch on real quick before we jump into if there's any more questions is buyer exclusivity contracts. And let me see, go back for our visual learners here. That's on this one. Yeah. Okay, cool. So buyer exclusivity contracts, this is something that is also, as an investor, you hear this, you're like, whoa, I don't want to work with that agent. And they say buyer exclusivity, it's like they're swearing at me. Geez, why I thought I liked you. And then you said that. And so I wanted to just really quick touch on this because we also touch on it in the courses, and it's not something that we talk about in a positive light, but it is something that it is a reality of a lot of agents' lives. And so what I wanted to do is give you guys some skills on how to still have a great relationship with the agent, utilize their expertise and experience, and then also work your way around with this buyer exclusivity contract. So it doesn't have to be, something that holds you back. Because, just like, one of the questions earlier, there was an amazing agent, didn't have the experience maybe that, the investor felt was needed for STR properties. Well, you could have an amazing agent that is asking for a buyer exclusivity contract, they might check all the boxes, they might, only work with investors, like all these things, but then they want a buyer exclusivity contract. Well, how do you take advantage of their services, their expertise, and still, deal with this versus just saying, whoa, that's, you're not the right person, and moving on. So buyer exclusivity contracts, most agents use these because it's they have they're kind of thinking of their mindset is not, what's the word for it? Not the opposite of abundance. I'm blanking on the word.
Scarcity.
Scarcity. There we go. Yeah. See, I can't even say it. I hate the word. But
you're so rooted in abundance that
yeah.
word is just, scarcity is just not even in your vocabulary anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it comes from a scarcity mindset. They're worried that they have a limited amount of time, they have a limited amount of energy, and then if they expend too much time and energy without having a contract in place, that they won't get compensated for it. And in the buyer exclusivity contract, what it does for an investor, it makes them feel like there's no trust. So it's the agent is using it to get certainty, but it's taking that all away from the investor. So the cool thing is buyer exclusivity contracts, really hinge on two different things. They hinge on geographical location and also time. So you can set them up for 6 months, a year, a day, an hour, whatever time period you want, and then you can set them up for an entire city, an entire state, or just one property. So they're totally adjustable in those senses. Most agents that are going to ask you for a buyer exclusivity contract, they're going to be of the mindset of what I term like a blanket buyer exclusivity. They're going to say, say that the agents in Austin, Texas are going to say, hey, I want a buyer exclusivity contract for Austin, Texas for the next 6 months. And that's what they were taught. That's the standard of how to do it. And you can either, throw your hands up and walk away, or you can say, hey, that's great. I totally understand why you want that. I respect you. I want to make sure that you are paid your commission, you're compensated for your time. I'm heavily, focused on, really building up my portfolio, and I don't want to limit my options to, other possible, deals that might come my way. But let's work for a solution here. So, you're planning on, why don't you, if you want to make a list of properties you want to show me this weekend, we'll just do a buyer exclusivity contract for this weekend, and we'll just go ahead and list those properties on it. That way, if I end up putting an offer or closing on any of those properties, you'll be compensated for them. But I'll also have the opportunity to work with other agents that bring me more deals. And then there's many different ways that you can, adjust that, right? It could be, maybe you do it for a whole weekend, every property they show you in that weekend. Maybe you just do it for an hour and you just do it for that one property. There's what's called a protection period on most buyer exclusivity contracts, which whatever geographical location or whichever properties that you are shown by that agent, that agent will be protected for a certain period of time. Typically it's 90 days. They can put whatever they want, but that's kind of what I've seen most often. So that, if you did a buyer exclusivity contract for 1 hour and I'm your agent and I go show you one property, I go show you that property. Well, the contract ends, but me as the agent, I'm still covered for that one property for the next 90 days. That way, if you go, want to buy it, then I will be your agent on that property. So there's lots of ways that can be adjusted. And in some states, it's actually against the law for an agent to physically show you a property without a buyer exclusivity contract. So, think about the mindset. What's that?
What's a state that has that?
I think Rhode Island is one. Yeah, and there's I can't remember the other one. So I was just talking to an agent the other day about it. But they're actually, if they go show you a property and they don't have a buyer exclusivity contract, they can lose their license. So just think about the mindset of those agents, right? And you're of the mindset as an investor of, hey, I don't want any buyer exclusivity contract. They've been taught since they were born that if they don't have it, they'll lose their license. And so you can imagine what type of conflict that would be. But the same thing can be worked out with them and say, hey, totally understand. I want to make sure you get compensated for the time you're putting in. Let's just put down the properties that you're going to be showing me today. So there's many ways that those can be adjusted. So I just wanted to let you guys know that don't let that stop you. There's amazing agents that do ask for those. Just be creative on how you guys can work around that so that everybody feels valued. And the other thing I would throw in there as an investor when you talk to them is to say, hey, I'm really strict on honoring the agent that brings me the deal. If you set me up on an automatic feed, I'm not going to count that because I've got that set up on Redfin and Zillow and Trulia and all those sites. And I'm not giving them, they're not representing me on these deals. But if you actually send me a curated list, or send me a specific deal, or you've, done an initial screening with the cash on cash calculator and say, hey, you should take a look at this property, then yes, if you're the first one to send me that property, I'm going to use you, regardless of how many other agents I'm, also working with. So
If you do sign a contract, can you terminate it after? Like, how does that typically work? Francisco asked, can you legally turn down this buyer exclusivity contract if you find out you don't have good chemistry with an agent?
Well, the buyer exclusivity contract is a legal document. So you are committing to that agent for a certain period of time in a certain area. So, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give you legal advice, but I can say it is a legal document, and you are signing that document. With that said, many agents will not hold you to that if you are not happy, because the last thing that most agents want to do is work with someone that doesn't want to work with them. So if you're working with an agent, you've signed a buyer exclusivity contract, and you do not want to work with them anymore, I would have a conversation with them and just say, one, I would see if there's the things that are the issue can be overcome, because that would be a better scenario. But if they can't, then just saying, hey, I really value you. I respect you, respect your time, respect you as, a professional. And I would like to be let out of my buyer exclusivity contract. Would you be willing to do that? And I would say the majority of times they're going to say yes. Because they don't want to work with someone that doesn't want to work with them, and they want you to have the best experience. So
I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let me show you guys, let me pop forward here. So this is my contact info. If you guys have any questions about agents, vendors, or issues or feedback, that's the email you can send it to. You can also send it to support@. If you need to get on a phone call, sometimes email doesn't work to communicate things. We can schedule a call. I'll send you my Calendly link, and we can do either a phone call or a video call. But here to support you guys. And like Kirsten said, the agent network is amazing. I definitely utilize that resource to its fullest. We also have an amazing vendor network that we're constantly improving as well. So make sure that you're taking advantage of that. There's no requirement to access anybody on the vendor network. So you don't have to have taken any course, done anything. You just have to fill out the form, and we'll connect.
So if your sister-in-law decides to go into real estate and investing, then you can send her to the vendor referral network. It doesn't have the same steps in place like when we have the short-term rental and the long-term rental, where there's actually like a vetting process.
Yeah. We still go through with all of our vendors. We still, interview them, either myself, Kenji, or Leti, or all of us. We do have a process, that we go through to make sure they're a good fit. But as far as the expectations that they have for our community members, the expectations are a little bit different, because usually the process is a little simpler than actually acquiring a property.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, let's see here. I'm gonna get you to bum. Still showing you a screen sharing.
Oh, let me end that. Let's see. Stop. Okay.
There we go. Okay. Well, thank you, sir. It's wonderful.
welcome.
And I before you run off, I just want to say that this particular fit of having you join us has been transformative for the quality of experience that our agents and our agents and our students have been able to get. I think that since this particular event was inviting everybody from the beginning of Zero to Freedom semi-retired MD time, that it's important that there have been lots of processes and innovations and quality checks and things like that that have come into place since you've joined us in February. And so I'm really grateful for that. So on behalf of the community and for people who haven't worked with an agent since you've joined, I encourage them all to like reach out and introduce themselves to you, or schedule some time and have some questions to just pick your brain. Sometimes people are like, I have the money, I just don't even know where I want to invest, and these are my criteria, and can I just pick your brain? And you're like, yeah, obviously you want to be in Indianapolis, whatever. So
or Texas.
Or Texas, right? So I encourage people to take advantage of that as well. It looks like we had a couple more questions come in. Let me see here. Oh, Sai, amen. Yes, there is more CPAs coming. Every time we find them, they get filled. So, and then let's see here. What if we want to learn about a market? How can we use the agent network? Would you have them?
If you want to learn about a market, I would say do the research on your own. We really want to make sure that when you fill out the request that you've already done the research, you've already verified that the market is going to work for you. You don't have to know everything about the market, but I would have run some cash on cash calculations to make sure that obviously what you're going to see on the MLS, or on Redfin or Zillow is going to probably give you a little bit lower cash on cash than you want. But make sure that, it's a viable market. The last thing we want to do is, you have not done that research, and we connect you with an agent, and it's just a Q&A session about, hey, what cash on cash do you see? Like all these things, the agents, that will frustrate them. We'll end up losing the agent. So, I just ask that, please do your research ahead of time. Make sure you don't have to, like I say, you don't have to know everything about the market, but definitely make sure that the numbers work for you, or there's a high probability that this is a market that you will be able to invest in. You're not required to buy a property with any of the agents that we set you up with, but we just want to make sure that, all those questions, that the answers are out there, they're easy to get, that you've gotten those answers yourself, whether it's by doing the research, asking on the community, asking me if I can help you. I mean, I don't know about every market. I can give you some ideas about some of them. But, a lot of this information is pretty easy to find if you just take the time and do some research on it.
And then about wanting CPAs, AG Tax is our newest one, right?
Yeah, AG Tax is amazing.
And they're in the vendor referral directory.
Yeah, we just added them last week or the week before. They have a lot of experience working with real estate investors, helping with strategy around that, also working with business owners. They have a flat fee pricing. The CEO, Michael Grossbach, awesome person. I got to interview him, Kenji and I, and we're super excited to partner with him. He not only runs their tax firm, but he's also prepared to scale up if we overload them, which we are working hard to do. So this was the struggle that we've had with so many CPAs, is that we release them to the network, and they get 100 people, 100 different investors, and then all of a sudden that's it. They have a limited amount, but Michael has a very strong business mind. and he wants to grow his firm. He actually has been the CEO of that firm for a number of years. He took it over after his dad passed away. I think it was back in early 2000s or late 1990s, and has just exploded, as far as what they're doing now.
Like when you and I had more hair, both of us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well,
But yeah,
he's in the directory, and then, but any other closing comments or recommendations before we hop on and I give Cameron a few minutes to run through some Facebook stuff?
No, that's it. Just say use the resources. If you have any issues with them, like got any problems, just shoot me an email. That's the best way we can knock out issues super quick. If you just email me, if you post it in the Facebook group, it usually kind of drags it out a little bit more, and it's not the most efficient way to get you taken care of. So just ask for you, shoot me a quick email or shoot support an email, and we're happy to jump on either a call, whatever needs to be done to get that knocked out right away.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. See you guys.
Have a great day.